Hi everybody, I'm Greg Fishel. Welcome to another bonus video about weather radar. And in this one, I'm going to be talking about an advantage, and I thought it was a very significant advantage that television station radars had back in the 90s and into the 21st century, before the National Weather Service came up with a new idea that has more or less wiped that advantage out, or at least greatly reduced it. And now we've already talked about how National Weather Service radars have a 10 centimeter wavelength and they can penetrate through one storm and see another one on the other side much more effectively than a 5 centimeter television station radar can. But there was one thing that the television station radars could do that the National Weather Service radar was limited. And I want to talk about that in the video today. So here's our radar, okay? And that ellipse there with the three triangles on it, I'm trying to depict the fact that at the lowest elevation, which is about a half a degree above horizontal, that the radar would spin around and sample the atmosphere at that particular elevation, okay? Then, after completing that, it would tilt up and move up to the next elevation and take a scan at that elevation. Once it went around completely at that elevation, it would go up to the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and eventually would get all the way up to 19.5 degrees above horizontal. One thing that's important to realize about radar is that there's something called the cone of silence, which exists right over the radar. The radar, at least the ones that we're using now, cannot see directly overhead. And when the Raleigh tornado occurred in November of 1988, more than likely that tornado initially formed in the cone of silence. Now, we didn't have Doppler radars back then, so we probably couldn't have seen the rotation starting anyways. But that is a concern about radars, and again, it just has to do with the fact that the radar signal cannot go straight up, that there's always going to be a little hole around the radar site itself where that particular radar cannot sample the atmosphere. So anyway, when the National Weather Service radar would do one of these things where it swings around, tilts up, swings around, tilts up, swings around, tilts up, we call that a volume scan. And they were very useful in the sense that it gave the radar operator a three-dimensional look at whatever he was looking at, he or she. And if it was a thunderstorm that was 40,000 feet high, then it would tell the radar operator things about, is there a weak echo region? For instance, if the updraft in the thunderstorm is so strong, then it's going to suspend the raindrops aloft. And if you see that, like for instance at the lowest tilt, you're not getting any returns, but the fourth tilt up you are, then that's telling you that the updraft is strong enough to suspend those raindrops, and that's probably a severe thunderstorm, okay? So being able to look at all these different elevation angles was very critical to assessing storm severity and other things about it. All right, so the TV station radar would only spin around at the lowest elevation. It wasn't doing volume scans, so it simply swung around, swung around, swung around, never tilted up. And so we got a new scan of the lowest level about every minute. Meanwhile, the National Weather Service radar, in order to complete its entire volume scan from top to bottom, took about 6 minutes, okay? Now, most of the time, that wasn't a big deal, but in this particular situation, it was. Let's say that you have a tornado that is moving at 60 miles an hour, okay, which is moving a mile a minute. Let's say that you're showing an image which is 6 minutes old, okay, because it would only sample, the National Weather Service radar would only sample the lowest level every 6 minutes because it took that long to go through all those other elevation angles. If you show an image that's 6 minutes old and that tornado is moving at 60 miles an hour, you're 6 miles off. And if you're down at street level and you're telling people that this tornado is close to the intersection of this street and this street, it ain't even close to that location. Okay? So in that sense, the fact that the TV station radars were only spinning in one elevation and completing it about every minute, then we were much more up to date on where that thing was. Okay. Now, it still may have been, a minute or a mile off, but much closer than if you were showing an image that was 6 minutes old. Okay. So I thought that was a really, really significant advantage. And if we really wanted to go crazy, let's say there was only one or two thunderstorms out there, but they were both severe, we could stop the rotation of the radar beam and just aim it at that one storm and swing back and forth across it and get an update every 10 or 15 seconds. Okay, so there were some pretty cool things that we could do with that. But then the National Weather Service came up with a plan, and it was a darn good plan. And so here's what they did. They swung around at this first elevation angle, okay, the lowest tilt. Then they went up to this elevation angle, and then they went up to this elevation angle. And then they said, hey, let's go back down. Let's go back down to that lowest elevation and take another swing around. So they go back down here. And then they say, okay, now that we've done that, let's resume the volume scan. So it goes up to here, picks up where it left off, and does a sweep or a scan at that elevation, and then at that elevation, and at that elevation. And then it says, hey, let's go back down to the bottom and get that lowest level again. And then after that, it resumes the volume scan, goes up here, up here, up here, and then it says, hey, let's go back down to the lowest level again. So they can set it up now so that we get a low-level scan from the National Weather Service radar as much as 3 to 4 times every 5 minutes, which means that it's updating in a little over a minute's time, that lowest tilt. And that's what the TV station radars are doing and have always done, is update in a little over a minute's time. So now, the fact that the Weather Service has this scanning strategy where it keeps going back down to the bottom and doing another scan has more or less eliminated whatever advantage the TV station radars had from a timing standpoint. Okay, and that strategy is actually called SAILS, and I can't remember exactly what that acronym stands for, but the bottom line is that we're getting much more frequent updates. And I still hear some promotions out there that are saying, oh, we're up to 6 minutes more accurate than anybody else. That's not true anymore, okay? If you hear that, like if you're traveling around the country and you hear a TV station running that promo, call them and tell them to stop lying, because that is simply not the case anymore. It's, again, I talked about other advantages the TV station radars can have, like filling in holes where the Weather Service radar is not located. But in this particular case, there's no question that advantage has been, more or less wiped out. And so now it's more of a promotional tool, okay, than it is a tool that is, 5 or 6 minutes sooner than anybody else. That's simply, we used to run that promo, and it was true at one time, but not anymore. Okay, that is bonus weather video number 3 for the radar series. There's other stuff to talk about, and I'll be recording some of those probably either later today or Friday, but I will get those other 3 out to you so that we can completely catch up on the number of bonus videos. Okay, that's it for now, folks. You all have a good one, and we'll talk to you soon. See ya.